We could start and then just get votes until we have quorum. Does that work? Okay. It is 9:35 a.m. I hereby call this meeting to order. This meeting on Ordinance Commission on Black Affairs on June 6th is called to order. Ava, will you take the roll call for us?
Yes, of course. Thank you. Signify by saying present, yes or aye. Chair Arvalo Asamoda.
Here. We're present.
Vice Chair Drury. Commissioner Duncan.
Present.
Commissioner Dogo. Senator Woods.
Present.
Commissioner Duke. Commissioner Rankin.
Zen.
Rep Nelson. Commissioner Fother Branch.
Present.
Commissioner Williams. And Commissioner Hardin Moore. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ava. We will now transition into the public comment period since we cannot do agenda minutes from last meeting. Do we have anyone raising their hands from our audience?
Chair Asamoto, we don't have any hands yet. Attendees, if you have any public comments, please feel free to raise your hand and we will give you access to speak for public comment.
Let's, shall we go into new business? Awesome. Our first new business, we have two new commissioners. Commissioners Ty Hardin Moore and Commissioner Clarence Williams Jr. I believe Commissioner Williams is not here today. I'm not sure if Commissioner Hardin Moore is here for a quick introduction. No? Okay, perfect. So we'll have them give an intro to us when they're here next time for the next meeting. And we're going to transition into our commissioner updates. This is usually just a time opportunity for commissioners to share that they have, whether it be in relation to the commission or their jobs in general, or any events that we have coming up here soon. So we can just go down the list. Commissioner Duncan, can you start for us first?
I'm not sure if I have anything. Come back to me.
Perfect. Commissioner Feather Branch.
That was fast. I just have updates from something we need to vote on, actually. Across commissions, we're trying to have a regular subcommittee across commissions on domestic violence. And so at some point when we have quorum, we need to vote on that as a commission. I am already on that subcommittee. It's been on it from I think since the beginning, I believe. Kyle can back me up on that. And we just feel like it's an important enough issue to go across commission. So there's that piece. I did talk to my research committee. Commissioner Rankin, you can chime in if you want to, if I miss you, on different topics that we had. And we did talk to some of our legislators at Legislation Day. I talked to Tanya Sanchez about a couple of things. Funding formula for one, since she's on the budget committee, but then also I talked to her about fully considering how we fund these commissions in our advocacy office, because they're funded much differently now, and we have been underfunded for several years. So kind of bringing us back into the 21st century in terms of how the OACO is funded and staffed so that it can be staffed, but also so there's enough resources for we to be valid commissioners for across the state, which I think is a important issue. My big thing on every topic, whether it's housing, education, or just anything else, is it's great to have all this legislation, but we need to have some resources behind the legislation, or it's just kind of lip service. And so when we're going out to community, it makes it hard because I can talk about, oh yeah, we're doing this with education, but there's no resources that back that up. We have gotten resources for expanding the freeway. We have gotten resources for transportation, but we haven't really gotten resources around education, some of our issues around healthcare and mental health, and then and just education in general, whether it's the funding formula for all of our schools across the state or just within certain districts. So that's my report. And I do have a copy of that, which I will put in the chat because I have a few more things, but I'll stop there.
Thank you so much for that update. Commissioner Rankin, you have an update for us?
Thank you so much, Chair. And thank you all the commissioners present and all our wonderful staffs. Good to see you guys today. And before I continue, permit me to thank you guys for all what you did the other time. It was wonderful. I can't forget it. The beautiful hall, well decorated. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone, for doing a great job. I can't forget. We had several meetings, and then I was so happy that we have such a great audience with representatives and senators. And I can't forget the fact that one of the representative, that is Helfrich, told me specifically that he will have to call us back for a meeting because when I raised the issue of housing, and especially for low-income earners, he said that it's time to advocate for adjustment of rent. And this is one area that he sees the need to stabilize housing. And even though some landlords will disagree, according to him, that there must be a bill established that can regulate housing so that the low-income earners can have place to live. And then we talk about education. And permit me to say, I spoke with some of the senators, and I can't remember their name. I remember Manning, Senator Manning. I also have opportunity of speaking with him. I think we have established a foundation. Like Commissioner Lee said, we have a good support, and we have the assurance that we can do something better in future. Like she said about the funding, Representative Helfrich told me that she has $8 million for mental health facilities in my region. That's been recently been approved, and that was good news that we have not had such facility here in our area. So that was a little I can offer for now. I was taken unaware, but that's okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Rankin. I see we now have Commissioner Drury. Would you mind giving us a commissioner update from me, Your Honor?
Yes, I can do that. Thank you, Chair Bucci. Great to see everybody. Saw some of y'all just last week. A busy month on a lot of different fronts. Have been working with Chair Bucci just on calibrating the commission and trying to get us set up in the best position to win. We had legislative day last Thursday at the Capitol. It was really fantastic. We had a really good turnout from not only our commission, but the other commissions as well. Specifically, one of my highlights was sitting down with Representative Nelson and Senator Woods on our commission and trying to not trying, but working to better understand them as our state representatives, how we can how we can best utilize their positions. And I thought it was a very fruitful conversation, and really the strategy we took, me and the chair, was really hearing from them, like what's working and what's not working. And we're going to continue that strategy with the other commissioners as well, because as I've said in my own kind of statements in the last several months, and just since I've kind of been on the commission, is, you know, everybody on this commission is already doing OCBA work in their everyday lives. And so how do we streamline that to make it work and not make this like another layer when we're already doing the work? So how do we like orient it so it's like going with us rather than being something that's like in our way? So that's kind of what we're looking to do in our overall strategy. On the outreach committee that me and Commissioner Dogo are a part of, we've been everywhere. Where were we last Friday? We were at so he was at Thursday, the ERCO gala was there. Suba was supposed to send me an invite, but she didn't, so it is what it is. And then Friday we were at Coalition for Communities of Color. So we had that one. And then Commissioner Dogo is also going to be traveling with me with Word is Bond to Ghana at the end of the month. So that's been a really cool partnership. And one of the things that we want to talk about is how OCBA, how do we leverage that, you know, to that's super outreach, right? Now we go into a whole nother country, continent. And so how do we leverage that? One of the things that I've had in my mind was creating a sister city. Portland and Oregon have sister cities around the world, and I think in the country too. And so I think it would be amazing to add a city in Ghana and form partnerships in ways, you know. One of the things we also have to always be cognizant of is that we have African immigrant communities here in Portland and in Oregon as well. And so I think it's important that we have to balance and understand that those two communities, African Americans and African immigrants, have very different needs and ways to support. So anyways, long story long, those are things that are on my mind as far as the commission is concerned, as far as how we're engaging. And just also want to put a plug for Juneteenth. There's a lot of amazing events happening. Couple that I think are exciting are the Black Rodeo next Sunday, the 16th. That's sold out, but you can still get tickets on like resale sites. And then obviously Word is Bond on Juneteenth, the actual day. We're doing 2 youth-led walking tours, one in the Woodlawn neighborhood of Portland and one in the King neighborhood. Those are led by our young men in our program. And so those are excellent opportunities to learn about local Black community, both historical and how they see Portland. And they're also fundraisers for our trip to Ghana, because the young men that are leading them are going to Ghana with us. So just plugging that out there, but there's a lot of other events, so check those out. And as vice chair, I have an open door policy. So if y'all want to come connect or have feedback or ways that we can improve, come hit us up, and would be happy to help and hear different ideas. Also, I did have an opportunity to plug the Environmental Justice Committee that Commissioner Duncan's been working on. I talked with Jairisha. I think you know her. She was connecting us with some other stuff related to the National Society of Black Engineers, but she wanted to hear some more perspective on that. So I was able to share the documents that you sent, and was explaining to her how I feel like that position could continue to be an impact with the work that we're doing. So that was quite a long-winded update, but there you have it.
You kind of just updated it for every point of the meeting, so thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Thanks so much for that. Can we go back to Commissioner Duncan? Would you have an update for us?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for allowing me to get my brain settled, and a couple sips of coffee to get the juices flowing. So I'll build on what Commissioner Drury was just naming. So the Environmental Justice Council, as folks know, I've been serving as the liaison for my entire term here for the Commission on Black Affairs. Sharisha and Commissioner Duke had also expressed some interest. I haven't been able to connect with Commissioner Duke around that, but I think it's a good opportunity for me to roll off and to bring in a new voice. So I will follow up. Sharisha and I did connect. She's incredibly interested, physical engineer, just really strong background in environmental work, and could be a real attribute to not just the council, but an incredible liaison to OCBA. And then Commissioner Duke, of course, being on the commission, if she has the time and capacity, I think that's a decision point for this group. And maybe Saba, your hand is helping to talk about how we make those decisions and what our process is, but jump in.
I'm more than happy to help with that. I wanted to ask if you could maybe spell the name of the person that you mentioned. I don't believe I know them, and I want to make sure I'm not
Yeah,
slaughtering them.
let me not screw it up. It's J apostrophe R. Let me look it up real quick. It's J apostrophe lowercase r EYESHA Brannon, BRANNON.
Thank you so much. We will eventually follow up, so I just want to make sure we got that right.
Yeah, that's great. And then just building off on the Environmental Justice Councils, they're working currently to schedule some engagements events. I think I've mentioned this at this table. Statutorily, they're required to create an environmental justice mapping tool for the state. So we're in the process of identifying some of the domains and indicators and geographies and things like that. But it'll be a really critical and good opportunity for our networks to engage in that process. So I'll just continue to update folks when those opportunities emerge. And then I guess the ask is really that you help get folks in the room and ensure that, you know, our voices are informing that tool design and ultimately what will be utilized for the state. And somewhat connected, you know, the DLCD and Oregon Housing Community Services, part of my paid work is supporting DLCD and OHCS on the Oregon Housing Needs Analysis, which is really wonky technical land use rulemaking, but there's some really important opportunities because this impacts housing production strategies for every city in the state with populations over 10,000 folks. And really centered in on housing production, housing choice, type, location, characteristics, affirmatively furthering fair housing. And there's a lot of impacts for Black Oregonians dependent on how this is actually rolled out, how cities are held accountable, and accelerating production in spaces and places that give housing choice, support anti-displacement, mitigate gentrification, and ultimately result in affordable housing across all of our income spectrums. So again, I'll keep you all posted. We've been in the process of doing some focus groups. We've had some great community input and engagement, but ultimately this is a rulemaking process that you know, I'd like to see OCBA, and I'm happy to support with some, you know, a little bit of boundaries because of my role, but happy to support the content and for OCBA to submit comment on the rules when they're drafted and put out for public. And then finally, just starting a process with Oregon Department of Energy. They're embarking again from legislative mandate to develop a Oregon energy strategy, which will ultimately set a vision for, I'll call it a just transition. I don't know that they use that language, but really thinking about energy and utilization and access and cost and land use and all the other things that overlay with energy security, both, you know, kind of big S security in terms of our energy infrastructure and energy security for folks being able to heat and cool their homes and afford to kind of live in habitable spaces. So there's an advisory group that's being formed. It will go out likely Monday for recruitment. So I'll share that with this group. I would love to see someone from OCBA, formerly OCBA, on that advisory body. But certainly if you all can share within your networks, again, this is one of those spaces that my experience tells me that we often don't have a lot of Black voices around these tables. And yet this is setting a vision, you know, that's going to guide energy strategy for the next several decades at a critical point, obviously, in our ecological realities. So I'll leave it there for now, but I'll share these resources as some of these opportunities emerge. And I'm excited. I'll meet with Commissioner Duke and Ms. Brannon, and you know, hopefully we can figure out our process to either appoint Commissioner Duke or to appoint Ms. Brannon for our liaison to the Environmental Justice Council. Yeah, Terrence.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Duncan. Can you also drop her contact information into the chat or send it to me via email?
Yes.
One thing that we're going to need to walk through is just how she's going to be able to provide OCBA with updates if appointed for somebody that's not currently on the commission, as well as how to empower her as OCBA to like vote her in to represent OCBA on the EJC. So just want to make sure that that happens, and I'll be able to communicate with Director Bueller from the governor's office as well.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that included in on the conversation.
Yeah, I can email you. And Karen Power in the governor's office has been the liaison to the Environmental Justice Council. And so she's aware that I am actively trying to roll off and to bring this dedicated seat a new member. Sorry, Commissioner Drew, I jumped in front of you there.
All good. Has this position always been filled by a OCBA member? Would this be the first time someone not on OCBA would be in it?
That's correct.
I'm in favor of that. I just think that, you know, when you look at the composition of our group, we're so stretched thin already that to have someone have another hat, I think makes it harder. And then also by having someone outside the group, then it just, again, extends our reach. We got basically another member. So I think that strategically it would be a good move.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely. So let's talk through that over the next couple of weeks and see if we need to either do a unanimous vote via email or for the next commission meeting to confirm her in, if that's the direction that OCBA is willing to go in.
Maybe just one last thing, and I am working with Karen Power to try to identify, are there other seats as well? And you know, I do think there's just been a dearth of Black voices around that table for many, many years. And so I just think there's some unique opportunities to try to ensure that our folks, you know, have some positional voice around this table that's getting more and more power and authority as time goes on. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Duncan. Senator Woods, would you have an update for us? I think your mic is off.
Sorry about that. I was saying welcome everyone. And first off, I just want to say that the event last week for Ledge Days, I thought was well done. I liked the interaction that we had during the lunch period and then thereafter. And I enjoyed, as Commissioner Drury had already said, we had a great conversation with him and Bucci in my office. And one of the things I want to make sure that everyone on the commission understands is that myself as a senator, our representative, Nelson, there are things that we need to know about and we need you to bring to us so that we can act on them. We have a lot of leeway. And I, for one, want to make sure, and I expressed this with Commissioner Drury as well as Bucci, so that you guys can use us for what you feel we need to open some doors or move some, whatever it is. Okay, so I want to say that as a foundational piece. So as I look at what what we're trying to do, I think laying what are those important pieces that we need to look at in this next session? What is top of mind for all of you? And I think if we can gather that information, I think it would be good for myself and Rep. Nelson to be able to really understand how we can be not only advocates, but help to move legislation in the right direction. This week on Tuesday, I attended. I'm on the Planning Commission. Excuse me. I'm on the Transportation Committee, and transportation. You're going to hear a lot of that in this next session. It's a focus area, well needed. I mean, when you look at, what's going on in the Rose Quarter or what should be going on, there's a lot that surrounds transportation. It's pretty broad. So I'd like to hear from you guys. It can be now or at next session. These are the things that we feel, or I feel as a commissioner, that we need to really be looking at. And some of these things we may be looking at. We've got a road show that we're doing, which was kicked off this week in Portland. And this road show is to have those organizations that have some responsibility in this whole transportation arena. We're going around the state, listening to municipalities, listening to people in those areas tell us this is what we need. So as I said, we kicked it off here on Tuesday. It was a really good session. And the session for the open, I'll call it open mic, for people here in Portland, and we were over at Portland State, excuse me, we were over at PCC where we held this at, and it was a really, really good event. I mean, we had a lot of people to speak and talk about transportation. The nice thing about it is we didn't have any rebel rousing. It was surprising to see how civil people were. But I bring this up because, as I said, you're going to see a lot this next session concerning transportation. And how does that affect us? Okay. Many of you, I'm sure, taking public transportation. How do you feel about that? I've had individuals that tell me I don't feel comfortable, taking public trans for this reason or that. So I just wanted to plant that information and for you to provide that to any input that you have in that area to myself and to Representative Nelson. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Senator Woods. I see we have Senator Williams Jr. join us. Would you mind giving us just a quick introduction of like who you are, where you're from, and your background?
Can you guys hear? This is Commissioner Williams, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because um, there was a little distortion there for a moment. I'm glad to be a part of this, and then I think I want to ask something real quick so that it doesn't slip my heart and my mind. Um, there's a huge amount of resources as well as some programs that's been set in place that has not been, I think, identified well enough concerning the Black community as a whole in certain areas. I've been very fortunate to be able to work with aviation and motor companies throughout. And there is a large group of entities that we're looking at and working on having all people of color in the same environment as those are in the aviation and actually learning. Um, the problem that I have found, Tom, is that getting it out in the ether, because these are things that a lot of people wouldn't even know that exist in certain areas. And what I'm looking forward is helping to bridge that gap so that we are able to identify as well as put resources and support and awareness throughout our state as well as outside of our state concerning different jobs and professionalism um, jobs that here it is that should exist and does exist. But we as a whole, until we start connecting the dots, that's when things can happen. So I'm kind of taking my cue from everyone here in one degree, and at the same time, I'm looking very forward to being able to bring to the board so that we can have a very good strategic planning and we're making a really, really great impact on the OCBA. That here it is, we have a lot of people that really are in need to be able to be in that same genre of employment as well as opportunity equalization and just in manner of being able to say, you know what, it does exist right here in Oregon, those people, and they get to do this all over the country as well as all over the world. And that's what part of I really want to be in and being able to take that input from you guys as well as direction.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. We are definitely very thankful to have you on board. I'm looking forward to work with you a lot more. I believe I will be the last person right now. Mine is just very brief. As you all know, I'm working on a project where we have a low-income housing being built in MLK. I would definitely love to have some of you involved in that, as we have just like a community listening session, and that's going to be next month. So I'll be sending some emails out to all of you just to see whoever is available. And also, when it comes to leg day last week, I had an amazing time. I feel like I learned a lot and was able to kind of figure out a more of a core plan for things that we need to do as far as events and goals for the commission. So I'm definitely very thankful for the time that we got to spend with the senators, with all the commissioners as well. And so definitely I'm thankful for Saba, for Dr. Myers and the whole team for being able to put an event like that on. So for the sake of time, we're going to move on to the next thing of the environmental scan from Dr. Myers.
Thanks, everyone. I'm gonna put this, the presentation that I have is in a Google slide format, so I will present it, but I just also want you to be able to have it. So I've just dropped it into the chat so you have access to that. And I am going to share my screen so you can see everything. And I do just want to invite you, like we've already been in this space for over a half hour. If you need to stand up, if you need to stretch, if you need to get a glass of water, like during my time, please do. And I'll, but that said, this is a very exciting and important presentation. So don't go on a walk around the block next time. Okay. So Let me make sure everyone, I'm assuming we're all good and everyone can see things here. So I am going to share something about Oregon state agencies and the opportunities for the Oregon Commission on Black Affairs here. Just a little overview of this. It's an environmental scan, and I'm going to share a little bit why it's important for OCBA, how this is involved with your 7 strategic priorities, and I'll share a little bit about disparity data and some other stats that are relevant to OCBA that I found within the state enterprise. And then we'll be able to have a discussion and next steps about kind of what you're thinking after this presentation. So an environmental scan, it's really just the process of gathering information about topics and their relationship to an organization. So the purpose of this one is I wanted to scan the agencies, introduce you to all of the different agencies in the state enterprise to help you understand the landscape a bit better and determine priorities and future directions. So why this is so relevant is because OCBA has a statutory mandate related to state agencies and monitoring implementation of laws that already exist, programs that already exist. So while it's absolutely important to be talking with Senator Woods, talking with Rep. Nelson about future legislation gaps that we need to address, there are thousands, right, of been passed, thousands of programs that are already being implemented that need monitoring. And so that's what this is really about. So I don't expect you to be able to read all of the words on this slide, but I just want you to be able to visually see this is the OCBA statute in Oregon law. The laws that were passed by the legislative body that define like the rules and authority and duties of OCBA. For this presentation, we're kind of focusing in on the duties. And really, this first duty that the Commission on Black Affairs shall monitor existing programs and legislation designed to meet the needs of the Black population. So just kind of trying to amp you up here that OCBA has legislatively mandated power to influence state level change for African American and Black Oregonians. So I just want to kind of help give you a tour so you can really decide where do you want to spend your time making differences and what relationships are out there that you can establish and build upon. So there is a website, and you have the link to this so you can kind of click on these links later, but the Oregon Blue Book, this is kind of the directory. There's a web version or a real like yellow pages version that we can get you. This is a directory of all the different agencies and the divisions and offices within them and the programs within them. And so just kind of so you understand this, there's around, there's over 80 state agencies in the Oregon State Enterprise. So everything from like Oregon Department of Human Services to the Oregon Advocacy Commission's office to the Oregon Department of Transportation. And then within those agencies, they operate different divisions and offices. So, and then within those divisions and offices, they're responsible for administering different programs. So in the Oregon Department of Human Services, or ODHS, they have an Office of Immigrant and Refugee Advancement, which operates the Refugee Services Program, which gives medical, food, cash, and childcare benefits to refugees in Oregon. So I really would encourage you to kind of play around on this site, click around, see what is out there, because these are the agencies that your commission has been established to monitor, hold accountable, talk to, bring things to their attention. So these are the 7 strategic priority areas that kind of all of the commissions align with. And these 3, though, are kind of OCBA's priorities from the document. I've got it linked here on the bottom, that Chair Asamoah and others have written about kind of like the 3 priority areas that you really want to focus on in the next year or 2, one being health and well-being, one being housing and families, and one being education. So you'll see in this presentation how I'm going a little bit deeper on these 3 priority areas, since they're already what your commission has kind of decided is going to be focusing on. All right. So I've organized the different agencies and some boards and commissions in these 7 buckets of the priority areas. So these are the state agencies that are related to civic engagement. And you're in there. So you can kind of see these, you'd be able to click on them and look into them more. So you might want to learn about these. These are all of the agencies and some boards and commissions that are related to jobs in the economy in state government. These are all of the agencies that are related to environmental justice. And we've talked about it a little bit, but yeah, just wanting to kind of flag that the Environmental Justice Council was established within the Office of the Governor in 2022. I know that there was kind of history behind it before then, but it's a 13-member statewide council responsible for advising the governor and state natural resource agencies, on environmental justice issues. And so we currently have Commissioner Ben Duncan serving on the EJC, and just, kind of knowing that this is a really wonderful bridge to be able to have some influence. So going into health and well-being, since that is that's one of your priorities of enhancing accessibility of quality healthcare services, particularly in rural regions. So just wanting to kind of help guide you a little bit there. Lots of health related agencies, boards, and commissions. I'm of course going to chat to you just a little bit about Oregon Health Authority, the behemoth, and we have a resident, expert here with our interim executive director, Terrence Saunders, who I think will be able to kind of answer more questions that you might have about OHA better than I can. But what I want you to know is that OHA has this goal that you may have heard of, that they want to eliminate health inequities in Oregon by 2030. And so knowing this, right, that this is kind of their mission and vision and goal, they have so many different programs and initiatives already in place that you can kind of tap into to learn more about, and kind of try to figure out if there's anything in there where you want OCBA to try to help move the dial on. Oregon Health Authority has an Office of Equity and Inclusion. And one of the things that I wanted to share about, because I've had some interaction with them through working on the bill that our agency OACO is responsible for implementing, the House Bill 4052 around addressing racism as a public health crisis. There's something called the Regional Health Equity Coalitions, and I've heard the acronym as REC, like RHEC, and also RHEC. So you can throw it, I don't know which one it is. It's kind of like when people call us OWACO. What is it?
They
Is it
use
R?
both.
Oh, we use both. That's fun.
They
Okay,
use
love it.
both
Tomato,
in
tomato.
OHA.
Okay, but don't call the OACO OWACO. Absolutely not. We are not Muppet babies. I do not love it. Okay, so the Regional Health Equity Coalitions, if you can see on this map, the different colors, that's kind of how they have the regions separated. And so each of these colors has somebody who's working with grassroots community organizations there. They're really working together to identify the most pressing health equity issues in their region. And it's really led by communities of color, grassroots organizations who are trusted in the region. They know what's going on. And so I would just encourage you that this would be a really great place to start, of being able to talk to the RECs and their coordinators to learn more about what's going on in these specific regions. And we can help set that up. We can help you go to one of their meetings, or we can invite them to one of your meetings, or whatever you want to do here, but just trying to help you know that with your priorities, you're not having to recreate the wheel. There's already really incredible work happening in the state. We're just trying to help you get plugged into the right place. Okay, next. With housing and families, which is one of your priorities of increasing affordable housing options and reducing housing discrimination, I want to help you understand like some connections you might want to make in the enterprise related to that. These are some agencies related to housing and families. I'm gonna share a little bit about the Oregon Housing and Community Services. Andrea Bell is the executive director of OHCS, and These are some of the programs that OHCS operates. I'll just share a little bit about, they have a home ownership program, and within that, a down payment assistance program. And these are a list of the down payment assistance awarded organizations. So there's been state funding, right, that is managed by OHCS, and then they grant it to these different awardees. So these are the awardees in the state, the names of them. So you can see the African American Alliance for Homeownership has state funding to be able to help with down payment assistance and home ownership education and navigating those processes for Clackamas, Multnomah, and Washington counties. And so you can see this from all over the state. So just a suggestion, y'all get to do whatever you want, but knowing these are the very, specific grantees, you could host listening sessions with them. You can meet with them to kind of just understand issues that Black Oregonians in their communities are facing when seeking down payment assistance or things. And you could hear directly from grantees about maybe what improvements need to be made. And then that's where you can go to Senator Woods and say, we're hearing this, that state funds, like people are having trouble accessing this way. We might need a legislative fix here. So just that can kind of be the pathway of advocacy for OCBA. There's a data dashboard on OHCS that I think is really fascinating. So you can go in and you can select different markers like, do you want to see home ownership by race or gender, by county, by year? So you can go around and play with that. I just have this one screenshot from it. This is on the poverty and income profiles, and it's kind of small, but you can see the top line, people below. So these are people below the poverty line by race and ethnicity in all counties, and 24% of Oregonians who identify as Black or African American alone live below the federal the poverty line. And so just kind of being able to look at these disparate data and have conversations with OHCS about these kinds of things. Another thing, it's not necessarily like a housing agency, but it does fall in line with it. So the Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industries, or BOLI, they have a civil rights division, and they monitor things around fair housing. And, there's a statement on their website that says you cannot be treated differently when looking for housing, applying for financing, or in other housing decisions. So BOLI operates a housing discrimination complaint platform. So people in the state who feel like they are experiencing housing discrimination, which is against the law, can report it to BOLI, who can investigate these allegations for violations of the law. If something is coming up as like, maybe this isn't a violation of the law, it doesn't stop there. So the Department of Justice has a bias response hotline, and they support people who have experienced non-criminal hostility motivated by a protective class. So there are state agencies, resources available to partner with on these things, learn about what's going on, learn what the gaps are, and then be able to take it to the legislators to be able to help fill those gaps. And then the last priority that y'all have out of your 3 is education and elevating academic achievement and closing the opportunity gap for African American and Black students. And so I'm going to share a few things from the Oregon Department of Education. So African American and Black students' graduation rate has improved over the last 15 years, but it's kind of recently stalled a bit as far as the improvement rates that we were seeing from 2008 to 2016, and gaps remain between Black students and all students of color compared to white students. So being able to see that right now, African American and Black students' graduation rate is around like 75%, with white students being, closer to 83%. So knowing that these gaps are remaining, there are folks within the enterprise who are doing things about it that would be important to plug into. So in case you don't know about this, the African American Black Student Success Plan was passed in 2015. It was House Bill 2016. And it directs the Oregon Department of Education to implement a statewide education plan for African American Black students from early childhood to post-secondary education programs. So really robust plan and meant to address disparities experienced by African American and Black students in every indicator of academic success. And they have specific metrics that they're, developing and implementing plans for to be able to monitor. So these are the specific project success measures here, things like decreasing the disproportionate rate of disciplinary incidents, increasing parental engagement. So you have, finite feasible things to be able to monitor and ask about. There is an advisory group for this, the African American Black Student Success Advisory Group. They meet monthly on Zoom from 9 a.m. to noon, and commissioners could attend the meeting as public guests. You can ask staff, if someone isn't able to attend, we can attend and learn about it, but I would suggest you get involved. You can request that the program coordinator from, ODE around this comes to an OCBA meeting to share about things and kind of help collaborate with you. There's also grantees for this fund, so you could invite them to a meeting to share about their work or do listening sessions. So like there are very specific people who are already doing this work that you can connect with. And then I'll pause in case there's any burning questions, and then I'm going to get into the last bucket of justice, safety, and policing, and then you'll have a lot more time. But I just want to pause in case anyone needs like clarification on anything. Yes, Commissioner Feather Branch.
Not not so much clarification, but just to add that I do sit in some of those advisory meetings, and they are very willing to come and talk to us and present at any time. One of the issues that even with the data that they have, everybody has been struggling to try to get disaggregated data that informs how we intervene when kids are not being successful. So that's a real major topic. I just thought I would add that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, Commissioner Duncan.
I appreciate you naming, selfishly naming, I appreciate the Environmental Justice Council. Is there other bodies that have statutory required seats for OCBA, or is that the only one? And I guess like that's a way of asking a question around, are there advisory groups, commissions, boards that we would want to advocate for that type of change?
Sure. The Environmental Justice Council is the only one that has specific OCBA, OCAPIA, OCHA appointees that I'm aware of. But that doesn't mean that there are over 250 boards and commissions that have different vacancies and seats. And so it doesn't mean just because there isn't an OCBA appointee that someone from OCBA couldn't also apply to be on that or be tapped to be on that. But if there were specific ones, like if you wanted that you felt that there should be an OCBA appointee on like the African American and Black Student Success Advisory Group, right? That could make sense of something to advocate for, certainly. And I looked at it really briefly of kind of like who are the membership requirements there, and we could explore that for sure.
Yeah, and I appreciate that example because I think there's likely places where the absence of OCBA specifically called out seems like an oversight at best. So that might be just a future conversation we can have. Thanks.
Absolutely. And I'm just to be able to kind of share a little bit about like capacity, right? You're a 9-member commission and there's 250 commissions. And so asking you to sit on all of these different ones as actual appointed commissioners that seems very taxing. However, the conversation that was coming up around the Environmental Justice Council of OCBA potentially appointing a community member, like on behalf of them, awesome. So, and then, they're reporting back. You could have something in your agenda that's like, our appointees are reporting back to us about what's going on. Love that idea. That they go out and are reporting back to you every other month. So I definitely think that we should explore that. That is great. We have it in the notes. That's exciting. Yeah, Terrence, do you have something you want to add?
Yes, just one thing to add. So I've been in discussions with Director Beeler from the governor's office and just, gonna ask this question right now. If there's any potential interest for OCBA members or commissioners joining any of the councils through the RJC in particular. So there's subcommittees, and then there's an early literacy educator preparation council, a housing production council, interagency council on homelessness, and wildfire programs advisory council. So that's something that we're actively discussing to see if we can get commissions that are through the advocacy commissions appointed for actual slots on those councils. Commissioner for the branch, please jump in.
I just wanted to add too, is the big ask for a lot of these too is for us to start to get youth on some of these. So I'm pitching that out there for our people who work with youth. Maybe we can have that conversation about them maybe sitting on some of these councils or at least the subcommittees so they can be given their input.
I'm hearing a theme of like building auxiliary, right, collaborative coalition group that, and so yeah, let's think about that, of what that could look like and how we could kind of like formalize that and really support folks, who you are hoping to kind of nominate to be an appointee or something like that. And I see Michelle Lisper has a question. I might have to. Oh, great. Michelle, go ahead.
Yeah, for those who don't know me, I'm Michelle Lisper. I'm with Department of Administrative Services. I'm the CFO analyst for the Advocacy Commission office. But just so you know, when you're talking about auxiliary, there are existing state agencies that have a very extensive plan on how to build out auxiliary programs. And a very good example of one of my agencies is Department of Transportation. So just as a heads up, you don't have to invent the wheel. There are structures that already exist that can assist as guidance.
Amazing.
If this is some way you want to go about it. And there are many other state agencies, but when I look at what transportation has, they have a pretty good setup with their auxiliaries and how those responsibilities split across the state. So
great.
At some
That
point,
great.
Kyle, just get with me and I'll give you some contact points of reference so you can look at what their framework looks like.
100%. You will hear from me at 11:35 a.m. today. That will be great. Thank you. See, this is great. We're not trying to recreate any wheels. We're trying to just that's great. Thank you so much for that, Michelle. Okay, if it's all good, I'm gonna just get through the last few slides of this, and then y'all can, talk about, we can discuss more about this. So the last kind of container is justice, safety, and policing related agencies, boards, and commissions. I am going to share two things. Just one slide from Oregon Youth Authority, and then a little bit about Secretary of State, because that is going to be the Domestic Violence Prevention and Statewide Coordination Subcommittee that Commissioner Fotherbrunch has already mentioned. So this is probably not, surprising or new to you, but want you to have this slide around racial disparities in the juvenile justice system. You can see that so African American youth are the top green row. African American youth make up about 4% of all Oregon youth. However, among OYA youth or justice involved youth, they are 13% in community supervision and 12% in close custody facilities. And there are about 6% of OYA staff are African American or Black. So pointing this out here as far as these racial disparities, and I took a screenshot of the goals of Oregon Youth Authority, that their goals are to improve outcomes for marginalized youth, diversify and support the agency's workforce, and address systemic inequities and embed equity in our business operations. So a completely appropriate thing for OCBA to do would be to reach out. We can help you with that, to reach out to Oregon Youth Authority and say, we're seeing these racial disparities, we're seeing your goals. Can you come to our meeting? Come to our meeting and talk to us about this. And so just kind of putting that out there that's what we can do. So I'm sharing all of these things as like, y'all could definitely fill some OCBA meetings, right? With just like invitations to different state agencies to report to you, to talk about things, and for you to help influence some change. So we just want to work with you of like, what structure do you want to do this in, right? Do you want to have a meeting that's all about how, whatever it is, like just, these are the ideas that we can fill your agendas with and subcommittee work with, coffee with, all sorts of things. Okay, and then lastly, I just want to share the context around this vote that we are going to ask you for, which is the Secretary of State's office has an Oregon Audits Division, and the Oregon Audits Division recently put out an advisory report in October. Awesomely, this report was done at the request of the Oregon Commission for Women. And so they were kind of feeling like things feel really disjointed, like there's gaps. They asked actually at the direction of Deputy Secretary Cheryl Myers, was like, this is important, we're going to study this. And so this advisory report came out in October. The review found that victims and survivors, domestic violence victims and survivors, face multiple barriers to accessing community services and navigating the justice system. Oregon domestic violence advocates are reporting fragmented and under-resourced social services and complex criminal and civil justice systems that are contributing to access issues, and that Oregon, the state enterprise, lacks a centralized statewide response to domestic violence and does not strategically address risks through statewide data-informed prevention, mitigation, or intervention-related action. And they have these three like really specific suggested actions of developing and implementing a statewide strategy, centralizing resources and statewide information sharing, and adding financial stability to nonprofit operations. The Oregon Commission for Women has voted on this, doing this work, being one of their commission priorities, and they want to do this with all of the other advocacy commissions because domestic violence touches all of the populations that we serve. And so they have been, yes, like Commissioner Liz said, they've been meeting for a while now, not secretly, but it's just, it hasn't been an official subcommittee, and we have gotten to the point where we need it to be an official subcommittee. It's been very like an unofficial, informal, we're meeting to talk about this thing. But it has gotten to a point where feet are on the gas pedal, and this is going to go into exciting directions. So commissioners from OCBA, OCBA, and OCHA have been informally supporting this. Specifically, it's been Commissioner Fother-Branch and Commissioner Dogo, and they meet monthly in a subcommittee. It's the third Thursday from 11 to 12:30. And it is a coalition of the commissions and state enterprise staff and domestic violence advocates. And so we're just wanting to put this out to you. You got quorum, and it would be great if you could vote on whether or not this is going to be an OCBA approved joint subcommittee. It would be the first joint OAC subcommittee that has happened in my time here. Really powerful, and there's a guide, right? This advisory report is the guide. The joint commissions are just the ones that are saying, doesn't look like anybody else is doing the accountability monitoring here, so we'll do it. So I'm going to pause there in case someone happened to want to, if you want to ask any clarifying questions about this or make a motion and any discussion you want on that.
Commissioner Fother-Branch.
I am just going to add this one little piece before we even take into consideration, and it may expand. So domestic violence also falls into different categories around healthcare and our other issues, because our youth are being affected by what they're calling domestic violence in terms of crimes against boyfriend, girlfriends at school. So I want you to know that. And then trafficking falls into this category. So we're trying to cover all the categories, and a lot of trafficking is happening happening in immigrant populations. So I just thought I'd add those two things or three things.
And then it's just a clarify, oh, sorry. There's a hand up. So,
Mr.
Sorry, I just wanted to interject. If you guys are not familiar, I believe the Department of Justice still has a position that would be Faye Stetzwater in the she's the lead attorney that is helping with various programs and outreach for hate, discrimination, and other crimes throughout the state. And I believe she still holds that position within the office of the Attorney General. Easy to find her.
Yeah, we have been able to work with Director Stetzwaters, and yeah, we will definitely be inviting her and her team into this subcommittee work for sure. Thanks. Go ahead, Commissioner Duncan.
I just wanted to clarify, are we just approving these joint joint subcommittee, or are we approving both joint subcommittee and then Commissioners Father Branch and Dogo to continue as our representatives? Is there one vote including all, or is it just for to approve the existence of the subcommittee?
That's a good question. I think as of right now, we have been thinking about we need a vote that OCBA is formally approving participation in this joint subcommittee. Whether or not it's specific commissioners isn't really it. I think that would be a separate vote, but just the formal approved vote that OCBA is committed to it or participating it is what we need the vote for. Whether it's whoever is coming, right? Like we would just want to make sure that it's not the full commission, because then you're getting into quorum territory and stuff, but just we're hoping that at least 2 members from each commission are participating in it. Terrence and Subba, if I'm wrong on any of that, please correct me, but just a vote that OCBA is going to be an official partner in this joint subcommittee.
And I didn't ask that because I didn't think that they were stellar representatives. Let me be clear. So I will make a motion for approving OCBA's participation in the joint subcommittee.
Motion is seconded. Motion to vote.
For notes purposes, could you please come off of mute and vote or raise your hand?
Aye.
Williams, aye.
Nelson, I.
Father Branch, aye.
I believe the motion has passed by unanimous decision.
Hooray! Thank you. Fantastic. Okay, so that's pretty much. I'll to close up my presentation about this. I hope this has been helpful in kind of a little digital tour of the enterprise. Right, Oregon state government is massive. However, there are very specific programs and staff who are doing the work that you are all able to plug into. We are public servants, right? They aren't going to say no to you. They can come, they can answer your questions, they can give you data. So just knowing you can ask for folks, in any of these programs to be able to give you information on these things so that you can determine which steps OCBA needs to go in. And I really just want to thank you for your time. Let me know if you have any questions, but just wherever we are on the agenda, I'm going to just turn it back over to you, Chair Asamoah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Myers. We're going to move on for the sake of time to official duties by Director Summers.
Yes, good morning. I believe I sent out a email attached with the official duties policy that we're recommending on behalf of the agency. Hopefully everybody has had a chance to review that policy. I would like to request a vote to adopt the policy for OCBA. Kind of the purpose of the policy is one, to share official duties on behalf of commissioners, just to ensure that we're standardizing that language across all 4 advocacy commissions, using it as a guide for new commissioners to understand what their roles are, as well as existing commissioners. The other 2 items in the policy is around reimbursement for lodging, mileage, so on and so forth. And the other is compensation per House Bill 2992 or ORS 292.495 or 405 or 495, sorry. So have folks had a chance to review the policy? Would you like me to go through it? I'm open to either for what works best for OCBA. I did send it out about a week in advance.
I know that I read through it, Terrence, but you know what? Could you go through it or break it down for us? Simplify it for us?
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and Commissioner Duncan, I see your hand up as well.
Well, I just had a quick question, because the process, like for compensation, there's a note that you can decline compensation, but there isn't any, I don't know how that happens. So there's no direction on how you do that. So I don't know if that's something that needs to be in there or not. Or maybe it's just a question that was the only question that came up when I looked through it though.
Absolutely. So I'll address that question before I even start sharing my screen. So you can decline compensation at the very beginning. You also have to meet income thresholds and be under a certain adjusted gross income. For single individuals that file taxes, it is under $50,000, and to file jointly, it is $100,000. So if you are under that income threshold, you will qualify for $166 per day for compensation per ORS 292.495. And that, I believe, is completed at the time of onboarding for new commissioners. It is something that we're currently doing. I cannot speak to what happened in the past, but there is a self-attestation form that's going to be sent out within the next couple of days through ABA. So I'm going to share my screen. No problem. So I'm going to share my screen. It is in track changes at the, I did receive feedback from one other commissioner on a different commission. So the purpose of this policy is to recommend official duties and responsibilities that may be considered reimbursable expenses and compensation eligible activities for all of the advocacy commissions that we support. The policy recognizes that and respects the work of all of our commissioners as they strive to make an impact within Oregon. And we believe that it's imperative to empower our commissioners to fully participate in their respective commissions. And at a snapshot, each one of these bullet points list an actual duty, whether that's out of bylaws or statute. Such as attending commission meetings, attending annual joint meetings on behalf of all 4 advocacy commissions. Just as a side note, we are starting to plan that for the fall of this year. And Sherry, I see your hand up. I'm not sure if you want to jump in really quick. And you are muted.
Can you hear me this way?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Let me end on the other thing. The attestation form that you are referencing should be done on an annual basis and uploaded on an annual basis. So if tax implications do change, that all board and commission members have the opportunity to update it and change whether or not they accept or decline compensation.
Absolutely. And we're going to be sending that out sometime in the month of June to all commissioners, as taxes were filed in April. So we should be getting those completed for the next 12 months, essentially. Okay. So any questions in regards to the commission duties? Hopefully folks have had a chance to take a look at it. I'm also going to move over to the compensation and reimbursement section as well. And just kind of an overview of the necessity for this policy in particular is it's to put safeguards around each commission's funds. As I've mentioned before in all of the executive director's reports that I've been part of for over the last 6 months, each commission has a biennial budget of $6,641. There is concern when a commission runs out of monies, what happens next? As we don't have endless amount of monies to reimburse commissioners, unfortunately, it's not baked into our budget with unlimited funding. So we really need to put safeguards so we do not run out of funds as an agency. So the main thing is subject to availability funds. Us as OACO shall reimburse commissioners for necessary expenses related to the official duties and compensate commissioners who qualify under the statute ORS 292.495 for participation in their official duties. And also that we are going to be sending out the self-attestation on a yearly basis, which is also mentioned in the policy as well. And I've also listed out the duties for compensation as well in this policy. So hopefully that's a decent overview, and more than welcome to hear any questions, comments, concerns, or feedback as it relates to this policy. Any questions, concerns, comments?
Williams, no questions.
So what I would love to do is for each commission, it's a recommended policy. Each commission needs to formally vote on the policy to adopt it. As I'll mention later in today's ED report, OCBA has a healthy budget, roughly around $6,000 left in general fund and $1,200 left in other funds. So it's not necessarily an issue at the moment around running out of funds for OCBA. So I do want to just throw that out there. And would love for a formal vote or pushback in regards to concerns. Commissioner Farther Branch.
So, okay, so it's not a budget issue for us at this point, but is it okay to, but I have a question to ask, because you said these funds are not a part of designated funding towards our budget yearly? In other words,
So
do you understand what I mean, or what I'm asking?
I do.
Okay.
I do. So each commission has a biennial budget of $6,641. So it is part of the budget currently. When this House bill passed, it didn't necessarily, and I'll actually call on Michelle to answer this and speak historically around the budget piece. So I actually see your hand up. So jump in as you're the best person to answer this question.
So to give Terrence a little assistance, the office has a set dollar. That set dollar includes total operating and administrative expenses. There are no separate, what we call appropriations for each of the commissions. So the money that is allocated right now for the meetings is subject to the office deciding how much is available within their overall budget that they can use towards reimbursements for each of the 4 commissions. I'm not saying it's adequate. It may be adequate for one commission and maybe not for another. So that total pot of money, which is, 6,000, you're looking at about $27,000, could be distributed unevenly if needed to balance the books. But they just evenly distributed a set amount outside of their normal operating budget expenses. And so it has been a long time issue that in the past, none of that money has been fully ever utilized. And so when the agency has come forward requesting additional funding to support boards and commissions, it was very hard to justify additional expenses when the money that was already allocated wasn't fully utilized. Or the commissions are now becoming more active in their agendas and their outreach than it has been historically. So things may change. Unfortunately, at the moment, this is the limitation that we have for the 23-25 biennium. I can't tell you what's going to happen for 25-27. I can't even, no one can guarantee that they are even able to get any additional funding if needed. But as Terrence and I have talked, we would redistribute the existing budget as needed, but there are concerns that some are more active than others, and making sure that they have enough money to cover those expenses, because it's not an open checkbook. That's all there is. They have to live within. And so I'm not saying there aren't, as a senator on board will tell you, there are other opportunities, but this particular program has not been very lucky in getting additional funding historically. Good, bad, or indifferent, it's just the facts. And when we look at the overall state budget and how much general fund is there, there is just not enough to go around at the moment. So I'm not saying folks can't advocate for it. I just can't say there's going to be any more money added to the existing budget. Does that help explain?
You answered all of my questions.
Okay.
Because part of it is advocacy, but also it's, in considering our commissioners that are rural and coming into meetings, because sometimes the meetings are in Portland or they're in Salem and travel and that kind of stuff. So thank you.
Totally. And let me follow up by saying, I think what Terrence is trying to do and setting up a policy and establishing feedback that members have when they travel is a great step, as him and I've talked in the past, as well as Andre from the governor's office, on ways to get more supportive funding for the commission office and the commissions, because it shows that there's actual work coming back, and it has, your outreach has a positive impact on what can legislatively or statewide be developed. That's what folks need to see. And I know it's there. It's just, I can't tell you what. Historically, I've only been your analyst for 2 years, but being a prior activist myself, the more that you feedback and you give, the more they realize how important your services are.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, that's the way it is in this country.
Well, I can say for a record that that's the reason why I'm here with all you that are here, been here. I'm very excited and very pleased that our goal is to make an impact. It's kind of like dropping a brick in the middle of the ocean. Who's going to hear it? That's what we're here to do. So I really appreciate you guys. I'm looking forward to us all gathering and putting our resources and our skills and knowledge and also ability to be able to say no is not a bad thing. Sometimes you have to hear no just as well as you feel good when you hear yes. So I'm looking forward to the process for all of you.
So, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the clarification, Michelle, as well. So I would like to bring it up for a vote. And just, or comments, feedback, if this makes sense. If this is too restrictive, would love to hear any feedback. Senator Woods?
Senator Woods, you might be on mute.
Doesn't look like it, but we can't hear you.
Nope, can't hear you. And you're unmuted on our screen, so I'm not sure what's going on there.
I can tell you guys, under the More button and settings, it's possible that Senator Woods, your system might be recognizing a different audio than what you're actually using. So if you pull down More and you go to settings and you go to device settings, see what audio microphones are being used, and you may have more than one that you need to pick from.
And if you're on a phone, you may be double muted as well. Can't hear. I would recommend trying to, log off and coming back in. So for the moment, is there any other comments, questions? And I do know we are needing to move on to the next agenda item.
I don't want to miss what Senator Woods had to say, but did you say we needed to vote on this meeting, or?
I would love a vote yes, or if there's more time to discuss, that's definitely something that the commission can take on. But I would love a vote.
So I guess, are we ready to vote, y'all?
I think we are.
Yeah, I think so. I would like to call a motion to vote.
I'll second.
Excellent. You can just do the same thing and raise our hands or say aye.
Yep, Duncan, aye.
Perfect. Asmoda, aye.
Holder
Williams,
Branch,
aye.
aye.
That is
Williams, aye.
unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. That passed.
Yes. And when Senator Woods joins us again, I'll definitely make sure to allow him to voice any comment, concern, things that he may be doing on the legislative side as well.
Just a quick transition to the Juneteenth discussion. We've already kind of discussed this earlier, but just a quick recap. I know from what I was told by Director Sanders that the governor wants to be able to support any event that she may be able to attend with the OCBA commissioners. So an event that we did discuss on attending was the parade that is hosted by a group called Juneteenth OR. And so, and the mission is to connect and strengthen communities while promoting the knowledge of the history of Juneteenth. This is something that I'm pretty sure happened last year. So the goal for us is to be able to join them and be able to have some kind of like a float or a banner in it for next year, because the deadline for that this year was on May 1st. So for this year, we're probably just gonna just go as a group if anyone wants to join. I'll send out some more information about the event. And then we'll just meet up and just be able to kind of have our badges on and just chat more about the commission and meet folks. And so that's kind of what we have right now for Juneteenth event. The quick tradition, I want to go back to the agenda because we have not approved that just yet from last meeting. So the agenda minutes from last meeting was sent out to you, I'm pretty sure, before this meeting by Ava. So typically, if you're not at the meeting, you would abstain, or if you're not at the last meeting, you would abstain from approving the minutes because you're not in a position to say whether they are accurate or not. It is very important for folks to review the minutes because you are endorsing the accuracy of it. So we can take a minute to have all of you and I just kind of go through the minutes that you have gotten from the last meeting, and the email should be in your inbox. And once you still have had a chance to that, we're able to kind of just have a quick vote on that. Does anyone not get the minutes from the last meeting?
Williams.
So because you were not at the last meeting,
Right.
you would abstain from this one.
So I would ask without Williams, and also we have a couple people missing. Do we have enough for that vote? Because he'd have to.
Sarah.
Yes, you do have quorum, and for approval, you just need majority of commissioners present.
Okay. Then I put in a motion for us to vote on the minutes from the last meeting. I always stutter through this whole thing every time. Anyway, y'all know what I mean.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Is anyone?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Perfect. The minutes have been approved in the last meeting. And then so everyone also, I mean, we've already been through halfway through the agenda for today, so that's kind of we'll have to figure it out. Do we have any objections for today's agenda? We've already kind of done the majority of it. No. Perfect. All right, that's passed as well. All right. Well, we are going to now transition into our old business. And the first one will be legislative priority refinement by SEPA.
Thank you, Chair Asamota. I am going to keep an eye on time as we are a little behind, but I do want to give the space to you all. I don't know if much of you recall, I think most of you were here, besides Commissioner Williams, when we voted on priorities back in October. And I believe Commissioner Duncan was the only one who may not have been present at that meeting. But as you might recall with some of the with the presentation that Dr. Myers presented today, you all voted on housing, education, healthcare, a number of really broad priorities, which are incredible and in alignment with the work that OCBA does. I'm going to pause there because I do see Terrence's hand. No? Okay. Excellent. Okay. Great. So you all voted on some really great priorities that really impact a number of Oregonians. And so I'm hoping we can use this discussion to really hone in on some of the areas within those broad topics. Hopefully Kyle's presentation gave you some ideas on what direction you want to head. It would be amazing for us to be able to solve the housing crisis that is impacting all of our communities, but unfortunately, there are going to be a million pieces to that puzzle. And so I hope the space is for you all to discuss what those puzzle pieces look like and which pieces that you all can take on and move forward either through this upcoming legislative session in partnership with other community organizations or just, within the community organizations that you are already a part of and doing that work. So would anyone like to start off and maybe propose something? I do want to give a little bit of an example of another commission, one of your sister commissions who are working on COVID modernization, which is specifically small business grants. I'm no expert on the matter, but our commission on Asian and Pacific Islander Affairs is working on that process with Business Oregon and really having that open conversation, what that process looks like, how it impacts communities of color, the disparities of communities who are receiving those funds. And so if we can use our priority areas right now to hone in some really targeted areas, I would love for you all to voice some of that right now. I did hear Commissioner Featherbranch mentioned a number of times the funding model within education. Maybe that's one, but I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth. I wanted to voice some of the themes that I have heard. So would anyone like to suggest start with one area and maybe we can take it from there?
Can you guys hear me now?
We can, Senator.
Okay. I don't know what's going on here, but if I could, I'd like to, oh, I'm sorry. I believe Featherbranch had her hand up first. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Your hand was up before mine. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Senator Woods.
Oh.
I will defer to you on that point.
Okay. I think we should really start to look at the strategic plank here we're looking at in healthcare. I think all of us know that African Americans have a high propensity for various health issues such as high blood pressure, prostate cancer, even pancreatic cancer. And so what I'm getting at here is information, awareness. I think we should start to focus on. And, really, one of the things that I've been thinking about for some time, and I don't know if this has been done and if it has, how extensive it has been, but looking at a health fair that is focused on African Americans and getting, when we talk what I just mentioned about the specific areas, there's a list of them, and there's some reasons why we have a high propensity in some of these areas. But information and encouragement is very, very important. So I'd like to see us focus on that as one, and getting not only information but doing something out to the public, in this health fair that would really, really, I think, make people aware. And, as we all know today, we have a lot of health things going on. So that's my input on that. And that's somewhat broad, but from I would love to be able to work on this with whoever, and maybe my representative here on this call, Representative Nelson, since he is a nurse, can really help with this. But that's an area, that's one of the things that I'd like to see us work on from the health standpoint.
as your outreach liaison through this agency, that is music to my ears. I love to hear it. And that is an incredible idea. So I'm excited, ready to get to work if we vote on that. Commissioner Feather Branch.
Okay, since I love that on the healthcare, definitely data is what I'm hearing. We need to be able to collect data, and data that leans towards intervention or prevention as opposed to how we've been collecting data. And I don't know what that's going to take. That's probably a little bit more, but Representative Nelson can help us with that too, maybe. Anyway, on education, the funding formula has not been looked at since 1995. It is up for reform conversation in the legislature this term. I talked to Representative Wynn, and she told me to talk to her again in September. So, and that affects students across the state, period, for how each student is funded within the state. So we're going by 1995 amounts in 2024. So I cannot impress upon you how important that is, because that will change a lot of things. And then the other thing with education, just like healthcare, we need data, disaggregated data that is preventative or interventions that will change numbers, like improving graduation rates, absenteeism, and all these other issues. So that's what we don't have. And I know that's also coming from ODE. They're trying to figure out better ways to collect that information.
Thank you, Commissioner Featherbranch. I do want to clarify, you mentioned data both for healthcare and education. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. I will also note Sister Commissioner Ocapia has voted on data disaggregation as well on one of their priorities. So maybe this is another subcommittee in the future, but we'll definitely table that for now.
And I think we have, I'm going to say, I think we have that within other groups for immigrant populations as well, because we're not getting accurate numbers on their needs, language, ELL, and that kind of stuff. So just data across the board could be an across the commission's subcommittee.
Absolutely. We'll definitely put that on our list of things to vote on. Commissioner Duncan.
Thanks. So a couple pieces. One, I certainly support not just the collection, disaggregation of data, but there's a model called results-based accountability, and thinking about the power of data to inform and be connected to accountability and acceleration. And it connects to, the piece on housing that I wanted to raise. I'm swimming in that world quite a bit. One is, as I mentioned earlier, the Oregon Housing Needs Analysis. OHCS is developing by statute an equity indicator dashboard related to housing outcomes. And it's specifically tied to DLCD's authority to move cities that are not producing housing or are creating housing that is resulting in further inequities, displacement, gentrification, et cetera, into an acceleration program that has teeth and authority, and really a powerful model that I think can be applied in healthcare and education, criminal justice, et cetera. And it's a complicated network of legislative action that would, I imagine, result in that. But I would challenge us to think about how we not just are collecting data that tells us the same stories that we intimately know about our communities, but actually using data as a tool for enforcement, accountability, acceleration. And then specifically to housing, one of the I'm working with Oregon Housing Community Services right now on a program called LIFT. It's Local Innovation and Fast Track. There's kind of two models. One is home ownership and one is rental, and it's underfunded. And there's some really technical legal challenges that folks like community land trusts, Habitat for Humanity, those type of organizations are facing, working with DOJ now and OHCS. But on the big picture piece is, how do we fund particularly the home ownership models that are accesses, pathways to access wealth, stability, intergenerational equity, like fiscal equity, and it's been underfunded, and it's a really powerful model of home ownership and low barrier access to capital and to lending. And so we can follow up on that, but LIFT is it has a lot of potential if it's funded fully. And particularly if it's targeted for our populations to be able to access what has been an exclusionary housing market for as long as we can remember. Thanks.
Thank you. That's actually an excellent point, and I appreciate you highlighting that. I hope that we can continue to do more research around this work that y'all are already doing in the community. And as you said, lots of intimate experiences of some of these issues as well. Excellent. Anyone else? We have already a great start to this list.
This is Williams. I'd like to add something, especially talking about data and kids going to school and so forth. I sit on the board for speech pathology and audiology, and I was chair. And there's a huge, huge amount of data that they collect on a very high level. When you're talking about kids who are from every nationality you can think of, I couldn't think better of an organization to be able to collect data from and work with to be able to show exactly what's going on and who's getting these services. Because believe it or not, the kids who really, really need it, yeah, I don't think there's a lot of entities that even know where speech and pathology really lies at in the state of Oregon.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Other branch, you have your hand up.
I know people keep saying stuff. I agree with Commissioner Williams because they collect data, school psychs collect data, and but generally it is not on every child. So we do have to keep that focus too, but maybe I'm adding input, maybe considering working with institutions, education departments, that we can actually tap into kids doing research, or young people doing research and needing to get hours and credit, because they may help us be able to capture some of that data. So I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Thank you so much. And seeing as we are at 11:21, I want to give a quick second to Chair Asamoah as well as Rep. Nelson to actually, let me just make sure that we still have Rep. Nelson. We do, for any sort of input before we jump to some sort of a vote.
Personal concentration.
Saba, this is Rep. Nelson.
Hello.
Hello. So what specifically are you looking for feedback on things I'm working on or legislative priorities?
Yeah, so last fall, if you might recall, we
Right.
OCBA voted on housing, education, and healthcare as the top 3 priorities. And what I'm hoping is that we can hone in on some key areas so that we can really move the needle with actionable items. And so there have been some really great ones mentioned today. One of the ones being a health fair that provides information and encouragement. There's data disaggregation across all of the areas. We've got education funding formula and reviewing that, updating that. So just maybe bite-sized items within those broad areas so that OCBA can demonstrate longevity results over the next biennium.
Yeah, I heard that. So as it relates to data disaggregation, I would think that the work that's been done around Real D should help with that long term. A comment I wanted to make when we were talking about health fairs, I think Senator Woods may have been speaking to that. I think it'd be a good idea for us to work with partners instead of doing our own thing. I know there are a lot of churches and community groups that run different health fairs, and I think it'd be awesome if we could partner with them on some of the work that they're already doing. We know that, and I'm due for an update on where things stand with the mobile health unit pilot in the near future, but perhaps we could work with one of the agencies that's out in the community doing that work. I will be bringing back my sickle cell bill that I brought in 2023. So that's something to look out for. And I hope that we're able to start doing the work to put some of the feedback and recommendations that were given as part of the work around 4052.
Excellent. Terrence, anything to add? Great. So I want to get us at least starting to vote on maybe 1 to 2 things today, and I do see that we are very close to time. We will need a vote to extend the meeting, Chair Asamota, just so we can cover the last bit of it. I want to make sure I note that first. Would anyone like to start the vote with any particular area mentioned here? You are welcome to make a motion. You do need a second for that to be a vote. You're welcome to abstain if you want to, whatever you would like.
Okay, so you get to have me do it wrong again. But anyway, I will make a motion for health disparities, collecting data and possible health fair or things around the health fair, including the topics that Representative Nelson talked about. That'll be a priority.
Commissioner Featherbranch, can I ask you to clarify that motion a little bit? Because I feel like I heard 3 different motions in that. So can we do one for
Health disparities, right?
health disparities study?
As promote studies. Yeah. Is that good enough?
That is good enough. Thank you.
Oh, I did it almost right. No.
You're so close. Thank you. That was a motion to do health disparity study. And as Commissioner or Representative Nelson mentioned, that would be great to do with in partnership with other agencies, other community organizations. Terrence, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to clarify this one particular area. So when you talk about health disparity studies, are we talking about like partnering with the health equity team that's already looking at inequities across like all of these different domains, healthcare being one of them, and one of the recommendations being healthcare disparities as it relates to Black folks in particular, so the high blood pressure, high cholesterol, so on and so forth. Would it be just elevating that as one of the priority areas, or are we talking about something a little bit different? So just want to clarify that before it's actually voted on.
I was considering the actual health disparities, high blood pressure, as it's specific to the OCBA, which would be Black folks, high blood pressure, sickle cell anemia, and any other related pancreatic cancer. Cancer is high, ovarian cancer is high. So yeah, any of the disparities, we need to collect data on that and kind of know where we are. So that would be the goal of the studies for me.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Are you talking about collecting secondary data that already exists in the state enterprise system? Like we are not conducting our own study. It would be more of just gathering data that exists within the state to be able to have a baseline to inform future work for OCBA.
Sure. No.
Well,
Yeah.
just the opposite of having to conduct a study is probably not realistic.
I agree.
Okay.
And
But
I was trying to tap
these numbers might.
what
Okay, great.
Representative Nelson was talking about working with other agencies, because the information is out there. We just need to be able to help collecting it.
Fantastic. Yes.
Exactly.
So is the motion to collect existing data around health disparities that disparately affect Black and African American Oregonians.
Yes.
Yes.
So on top of that, just for clarity for me, so yes, collecting the data, OHA houses a lot of that data already, so it's just more of finding that data on their websites. Would it also make sense to invite OHA's like health equity team that collects a lot of that data and reports out on that data to the next OCBA meeting to report out on the disparities, or just trying to figure out like what is this goal trying to get at? And to me, it's more around awareness.
Terrence, if I could pause for just a moment, I do want to note that if this is getting a little too much into the weeds of healthcare, maybe we come back to this. And I want to pause specifically to hand it back over to Chair Asimatos for a vote to extend the meeting, if folks are able to stay.
Thank you, sir. But I'll make a motion to extend the meeting, let's say 15 minutes.
Williams second.
Okay.
I vote I can stay.
I can stay.
And that is unanimous. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Excellent. I'm gonna table the data disparity study just for a moment, and come back, as there are a number of other items that might be a little bit easier to clarify. Let's jump into the health fair. Is that, I'm just gonna go down my list. Is that something that someone wants to make a motion on?
I'll make a motion that we look at what it would take for us to do a health fair, whether it's separate or in conjunction with what's being done already.
I second that.
I would say aye.
Williams, aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan and Rep.
Muted. Duncan, I, yes.
Thank you. And Rep. Nelson?
He's on mute.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Saw, but there was a fire alarm going off where I am. Are we taking a vote on the last subject?
Yes, taking a vote on a health fair.
I'm thumbs up on that.
Excellent. I hope everything is okay with the fire alarm.
Yeah, it's fine.
Motion passes. This is exciting. We're making progress. Next up, reviewing and potentially redoing the educational funding formula that Commissioner Feather Branch mentioned. Any emotion?
I will make a motion on that. And I'm not sure how to state this. I think that the way that Representative Nguyen brought it up to me is there is a committee looking at that. One of the committees is looking at the education committees, and it's just what my motion would be is to follow through to see what they're doing and even help make recommendations around the funding for reforming the funding formula.
And Kyle, I saw you come off mute. Would you like to jump in?
Nope, I was just, we got it. We got it in the notes of what the motion is. Thanks.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Williams second.
Perfect. Votes. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Duncan, I.
Feather
Unanimous
Branch.
approval. Excellent. Another great vote. I'm gonna do one more and then we can look back at some of the other priorities before we can come back to the rest of the priorities at the end of the rest of the agenda. Representative Nelson's sickle cell bill that he mentioned, and Rep. Nelson, if you would like to expand on that, please feel free.
Oh, I can't remember the number off the top of my head from last session, and we could wait until that's fully flushed out because I don't have an LC yet, although I anticipate the bill being about 90% of what it was in 2023. But it's basically going to be a bill that brings together providers and experts in the region to do better to ensure that people with sickle cell are being treated and those who have it and are undiagnosed get the diagnosis that they need earlier so that they improve on their chances of surviving long term. But I'll see if I can't dig up that bill number and throw something in the chat.
Would it be helpful to put some time on the next agenda to discuss that a little bit, or would you like for some time somewhere down the road?
Yeah, it probably won't be fleshed out until the fall. So October, November.
Sounds great. We can do that. Great. I'm going to pause there. We have two amazing pathways already that we can move on, particularly with the outreach and the research committee. I look forward to having more of these conversations as we move forward into the long session. And I want to turn it back over to Chair Asamoah. I know we've already covered some of the other agenda items, but I yield my time.
Thank you, Seba. For the sake of time, we're gonna skip subcommittee reports since we already kind of had that covered through our check-ins this morning. So we're gonna go to the ED report by Director Saunders.
Yes, so I submitted my ED report as well as part of the agenda items for this meeting. Just to give a highlight, OCBA currently has $6,069.76 left in general fund for commissioner activities. That includes reimbursements, travel. For any reimbursements, please send those over to Ava as well as myself so we can pay those out, especially for those that attended Ledge Day in person. Mileage is something that can be claimed for all commissioners. Just an update on as well, on May 31st, 2 commissioners were appointed on OCBA and confirmed on this confirmed by the Senate. Ty Hardin Moore as well as Clarence Williams will be joining OCBA effective as of yesterday. We look forward to setting up onboarding meetings and getting them up to speed on each commission's work. Also, a couple of internal work updates. Thank you for voting on the official duties policy. We've also created an onboarding checklist for all new commissioners to ensure that there's accountability within OACO, providing clear and consistent information. And within the coming days, we will be scheduling that with all 5 new commissioners. Just to recap over Ledge Day as well on May 30th, very well attended event and glad to hear a lot of the feedback. So appreciate the majority of folks being able to attend in person. Also, we are starting to plan our joint commission meeting later this fall. That's for all 4 commissions as part of the statutory requirements to have 1 annual meeting. So we are working to plan on that, and that is likely going to be the end of September or sometime in October. Also, just wanting to flag that there's going to be a training for fundraising as part of OACO's monthly Lunch and Learn series, which is going to be held next Friday from 12 to 1 p.m., hosted by Seba Salim. Also just going to highlight some of the activities of commission, our sister commission agencies, our sister commissions within the agency. So commissioners have expressed extensive interest in hearing the governor's priorities for OACs. So we're working diligently trying to set that up for sometime in the fall, which is a reception with the governor, Still waiting on a date, but that is something that we are continuing to request. Also, just wanted to give a shout out for a couple of other activities from other commissions. OCBA partnered with Oregon Rises Above Hate for the proclamation signing for Asian American, Native Hawaiian Pacific Heritage Month at Lansu Chinese Gardens, and that was posted. In attendance was also the governor, so appreciate other legislators that have shown up as well. OCFW has also hosted a Missing, Murdered, and Indigenous Peoples Lunch and Learn on May 17th. And there's a lot of key takeaways, and appreciate commissioners for showing up to that meeting as well and showing support to OCFW. Also, OCBA has been extremely busy within the last month, attending a number of speaking engagements. It ranges from ERG presentations all the way to Port of Portland employees, and doing a presentation of OCBA's priorities and kind of what they stand for within the state. So that is the ED report for this month, and I will turn it over back to Chair Asimoto.
Thank you, thank you, Dr. Sanders. Right now we have also, I think, for the good of the order. Saba, do we have any announcements?
Really hope to see you all on Juneteenth at the parade, as well as supporting Commissioner Drury's Where It Is Bond walking tours. I will be at the parade as well, and our next meeting is on August 1st.
Perfect. This concludes the end of our agenda. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm looking forward to seeing you all either on Juneteenth or at the next meeting.
Awesome. Appreciate it, everybody. Take care.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Same here.
Bye.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Have a good afternoon.
Everyone, bye.